Are you tired of relying solely on medications and traditional therapies to manage your anxiety and depression? Are you looking for a more natural and holistic approach? Then tune in to this exclusive interview with Eimear Burke, a leading druid, mental health advocate, storyteller, and celebrant. In this conversation, Emma will explain why she believes Druidry can provide relief from symptoms of anxiety and depression. You'll learn a bit about Druidry, including the power of nature and the importance of community, which have helped countless individuals find peace and balance in their lives. This is a special opportunity to explore the intersection of Druidry and mental health, so don't miss out. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and I'm a recovering accountant on a quest to help people suffering from the symptoms of anxiety and depression by finding and testing Druidic, Celtic, and pagan practices and traditions, which may help provide relief from these symptoms. Welcome, Eimear. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Michael. Lovely to be here.
Why don't we start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got into Druidry, now whatever you feel is pertinent or interesting.
Okay, well, my name is Eimear Burke, and I'm speaking to you today from my home in Three Castles in Kilkenny in Ireland. And I'm a psychologist, a counselling psychologist in private practice here in Kilkenny. I'm also a storyteller and a druid. I play the harp too. You can see it here in the background. How did I get into Druidry? Well, I come from a Roman Catholic background, as many Irish people do, and I was never religious, even though I come from a religious family. And I remember when I was 9 being in religion class and it dawning on me that the God that the nun was talking about didn't exist. Now, of course, I panicked quietly, thinking I'm going to hell for having such a thought, but it never left me. And so I was an agnostic for many, 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 many years. And I became interested in traditional healing. I come from a nursing background, so I went out to save the world after I qualified in my early 20s. I went out to Kenya, and became interested in traditional medicine, although I didn't have much access to it. But I was interested in that and nature-based worldviews, which was very, very different to my own. And came back from Kenya, and I did a degree in psychology, and then I went to Africa again, and got involved in healing and meditation. And that's where I first heard of Glastonbury, actually. I'd never heard of Glastonbury before. I heard about it in Africa, which is really, really interesting. Yeah. And
funny how things work out.
I know. And then I came back and I did a master's in counselling psychology. And I was asked to teach for a year to cover somebody on sabbatical in a development study centre in Dublin, which I did. And part of that involved, well, I went there for a year. I stayed 27. Anyway, long story. But we set up a pilot project in development studies in Tanzania. And my late husband, Howard, was coming with me, and he needed something to do. So he was interested in meeting a healer. And one of my students has a brother who's a healer. So we got them hooked up together, and we became friends, and we're still very, very close friends. And we videoed his work. And he came here for 3 summers. We did workshops together. And I had initiations with him. I was also working with an American woman from an Indian tradition. It was excellent. It was wonderful, fascinating. But, it wasn't from my landscape. So I had a frustration that, you're talking about Native American archetypes or African archetypes. They're not mine. And then I was with Shaban, my healer friend. We were in a bookshop and this book hopped out. It was Cassandra Eason's book, The Modern Day Druidess. I thought, oh, I'll look at this. And she talked about being a druid. She was a solitary druid. Creating a grove. You can be a druid in a city. You can put 4 pot plants and there's your grove. And she mentioned OBOD. She trained with OBOD, and she mentioned it at the back of the book. So I had a look. I went to their website and I thought, this is really interesting. And I thought, I'll sign up for this. But I had a choice to make. I was considering doing a psychotherapy supervisor's course. I couldn't do both, and I had to choose between one and the other. And I clicked on the send button for the OBOD introductory course. And this whole rush of energy came up through me, and I knew I'd made the right decision, and I haven't looked back. So that then provided me with a doorway into my own landscape. And I found that the teachings of OBOD, the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, absolutely fascinating. And it allowed me to tap into my own landscape and to learn more from the landscape around me. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So I had found my home, as it were.
Oh, that's
And yet,
fantastic.
I was taught by Roman Catholic nuns, and I learned all about the myths and legends from these nuns when I was a child. So I knew about druids, I knew about the She, I knew about the other world, I knew all the legends. So studying Druidry and joining the order allowed me to revisit all of those. And Ireland is a great place to be a Druid, because even though we have a strong Roman Catholic tradition, paganism or a land-based, nature-based spirituality is just below the surface. All you do is a little scratch and people understand it. I've never had to hide the fact that I'm a Druid, and I taught in a seminary. This development study centre was also in a seminary. I never had to defend it.
I mean, I was reading, and I also interviewed Dara Malloy. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yes, I do. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and he was telling me how much the population of people who are practicing Catholics has gone down in Ireland, and how things like Druidry and paganism are making a big comeback.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's more and more. And I think essentially Irish people are deeply spiritual. And I think the Catholic Church had lost so much of its credibility given the recent, in the last 30 years, scandals around sexual abuse and all of the child sexual abuse, etc., and their inability to deal with it in a responsible way, that they did have a very, very strong hold on the government and on the people, on the psyche of Irish people here. And that's gone. And people are now looking to more land-based, nature-based, landscape-based spiritual path, and Druidry in many ways provides that. Now, it's not all, Druidry is only a part of that nature-based path. I mean, there are lots of other pagan, I suppose, traditions in Ireland that people follow as well. But Druidry is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated by it. I just regret that I did not find out about this path until, I was 49. I'm like, how much time do I have left? There's so much to learn and to do and to figure out.
Well, I was the same. I was in my early 40s. But I think everything has its own time. And where I was dabbling and searching before that, and I found this at the right time. So I always believe strongly that when the time is right, you find what it is you need, because then you have a really, really deep appreciation. You also have a hunger. And when you have a hunger for something, you can really, in a more enthusiastic, more curious, respectful, fascinated way, delve into it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my time was when I had a bit of a panic attack mental breakdown, but like you said, everything in its time. But I just knew that there was quitting my job wasn't enough. I needed a fundamental change in my mindset and my lifestyle.
And that happens to so many people. Some life crisis pushes them through a doorway they had never anticipated, and they wouldn't have done that without that crisis. That somehow it's a gift.
Right, exactly. I think someone told me that I should be a shaman because it was a result of some sort of mental issue. It's like, okay.
That's right. When life experience strips you bare back, down to everything, and you've lost so much, whatever it is. Some people have lost their home, their job, everything, and they're back just to their essential essence, which is part of the journey of the shaman who becomes a shaman. Everything is stripped back, flesh from bones, back, bones gone, just your actual essence, and then you build yourself back up. It's a very painful process, but I think a very, very rich one. That you think of after the fact, not while you're going through it.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's after the fact. It was a fundamental life change for me, because not only was it a new spiritual path and I guess mental path that I was investing my life into, but it was also changing, going places that were unfamiliar. I mean, you go back 8-9 months ago, you couldn't find me on the internet. I was non-existent. Now I'm on YouTube, on here and there, a newsletter. So a lot of fundamental changes it can, bring forth.
Wonderful.
Not asking you specific content or anything about OBOD, because obviously, people should buy the lessons if they're interested, and there's plenty of free materials on the OBOD website. But do you want to generally describe, what the teachings consist of or how it works or anything like that?
Okay, well, what we have are three grades, the Bardic grade, the Ovate grade, and the Druid grade. You start at the Bardic one before you go on to the Ovate, if you so choose, and then onto the Druid grade. It's not a hierarchical organization, even though we have three grades. I think grade, just for want of a better word, is the word that's used. So on the Bardic grade, it's around you connecting with nature, the wheel of the year, the seasons, the elements. And also it's about allowing you to pursue your own creativity. And that creativity is expressed in so many different ways. So it could be through poetry, it could be through storytelling, music, arts, it could be through cooking, your garden. It's however you express your creativity. And it's about tapping into that creative process through your engagement with the elements, with nature, with the landscape. And the landscape in which you are, even though, OBOD was founded in Britain, and I'm here in Ireland, but in these islands is where Druidry flourished, although they came from, the East as well. But
Okay.
any of the accounts are about Druids from Gaul, Britain, and Ireland. You can be a Druid wherever you are, if that worldview calls to you. So it's about you engaging with your own landscape. I don't know where you are, Michael.
I'm in Long Island, New York.
Long Island, okay.
My landscape is other buildings and concrete pretty much right now.
Oh.
If you are enjoying this interview with Eimear Burke, then I humbly request that you click on the subscribe and like buttons. I would really appreciate it.
Okay, well, this is when I read that book by Cassandra Eason. She said, you can be a Druid in a city, that you can create your grove in your apartment. Also, very important, in one of the basic kind of fundamental foundational teachings is around your developing your own inner grove, that relationship with your own inner landscape. And that, you have an inner wheel of the year. And it's when I'm going to look out my window here, but so I'm looking out at sunshine here, that we follow the wheel of the year as a way of marking our relationship between our inner landscape and the outer landscape.
Right.
So that's very, very important. So whether you're in Long Island or whether I'm here, I'm very, very lucky. I have a grove in my garden. I'm listening to the birds. I can follow and notice, as the trees go from being bare to the first little buds to the first little green shoots and so on and so forth. It doesn't matter where you are, because your internal world is also very, very important.
Yeah, Philip explained that to me when I spoke to him, because I was telling him how I have debilitating allergies. I'm allergic to everything environmental except for mold. So if I even look at a tree, I have symptoms, and bugs just love me. And if I go out walking in a garden, I come back with puffy eyes, sneezing, and bug bites all over me. And he said, "Don't worry, you can do this in your mind."
And that's one of the important things, when you are confined, that if you can recognize that your inner world is a really rich place to be.
Yeah.
Because that really struck me, during the lockdowns, initially with the COVID management of the pandemic, knowing, and I had a garden, but knowing that had I been in a city, that rich inner world to nourish me and support me as we went through those difficult times of uncertainty.
Just out of curiosity, did the OBOD membership have any noticeable increase during the pandemic?
The monthly rate doubled.
Wow. Yeah, I would figure as much. Wow.
Yeah, it mushroomed. And, whether it was the pandemic, it happened in 2020, the whole mushrooming. So maybe concerns about climate change, the pandemic, absolutely. And for many, many people, within the teachings of OBOD, we've no dogma. So we encourage diversity in terms of diverse worldviews. So you can be a pagan and a Druid, a Christian and a Druid,
right,
a Muslim, a Buddhist, whatever, an atheist and agnostic, a monotheist, a polytheist, it doesn't matter. We never have arguments about that. There is no dogma. They're in terms of teachings, and it's a course by distance. has a mentor, you can have a mentor to support you in your studies. But the teachings involved encouraging you, maybe providing you some texts, no dogma, but how you engage with your landscape, with nature, your creativity, certainly in the first grade. And so it allows people to think for themselves and to unpack their own worldview, their own spiritual values. Many people who join say, I came from this such and such a background, I've abandoned it, I hated it, it was oppressive, blah, 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 and now I am a Druid and this is what I am. Others go, I find Druidry really interesting. I love that nature connection, etc. And I love the principles and the values of Druidry. I also want to bring my Christianity or my Buddhism or my Judaism in. And Druidry, or certainly in OBOD, allows you the space to be able to integrate all of those. So I think for many people in a time of uncertainty, OBOD was a home for many, many people. There are people who want, for whom a fundamentalist religion is good. They want certainty and they want answers. If you're of that persuasion, OBOD is not for you because you're not going to get answers. You have to source this out yourself, which can be really frustrating for people who want certainty. But I think if you want free form and you can allow yourself to dive into this river, into and follow whichever tributary you want, it all goes back to the source anyway.
Yeah. The way I kind of look at OBOD is they won't give you the answers or dogma, but they'll give you the tools you need to figure everything out for yourself.
That's right. And, there are many forests that you can go into, and there are many forest paths. You choose which you want. Same way so OBOD is very like a rich, diverse forest that has different kinds of trees which support different wildlife, different insects, flowers, plants, different textures, colors. So it's like it's a magical landscape that you can choose to tune in to whatever aspect of it you want, and that there's enough for everybody, and there's no argument about it. There's no vying for resources in a sense. It's that notion of there is enough for everybody, and once you connect and recognize the interconnectedness of all things, you have found your home.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very much enjoying the lessons. And for those who don't know, the lessons you could take either online, in print form, and here's a sample of toward the back, a sample of one of the lessons you can do, or you can get both, like I did. I like to have one as a written reference if I want to look up something, and the online to do it online because I'm always at my computer.
And it's wonderful to be able to do that. When I did it, it was first I think it was a cassette, and then it went to CD, and now it's digital. So, but I loved, for me, and I people will tell, every month this brown envelope comes, each year for each of the years that you're studying, and I always look forward to what's going to be when I open the envelope. What am I going to discover? What am I going to see? And so many people have talked about that, just looking forward to that brown envelope coming once a month to be able to find some magic, some nugget of nourishment and wonder.
I actually found it stressful, honestly, because the mail is so crazy that, where is it? I didn't get it yet. Okay, I got it. Well, probably next one will be late. The next one comes 2 days later. It's like, wait, what's going on?
Okay, we have good service here. I'm sorry. Yes.
No, it's not you. It's the mail service. It's so
no, I know
wonky.
that, but in Ireland we've got a good mail service here in Ireland. So, this always amazes me how Stephanie used to get every month those brown envelopes were posted on the same day every month.
Yeah, I have a good quick Irish postman story for you. The first time we were in Ireland, we were up on the border of County Longford and Westmeath, where my Irish ancestors are from, and I was trying to track down people with the same family last name. And my my family's guide, saw a post truck drive by, or a mail truck, I don't know what you call them, drive by the other way. She spins around and chases the postman. When he stops, she stops behind him, goes out and starts talking to him. He comes over to our car because she figured he might know people with the last names we were looking for. And for half an hour, that postman stood there talking with us about everything. I was just like, okay, thank you. And he gave us turn by turn directions to where we could find somebody of the same last name. And I just thought that unbelievable, because here you call a postman, you're lucky that they even respond to you, let alone chase them down.
And here, post people are local.
Yeah, I should be correct with that, but
Oh,
it wasn't
no.
man. But it was a man.
It was always postmen when I was growing up. There's the odd postwoman now, but I wasn't correcting. I wasn't being PC at all. No, absolutely not. I have a postman now, but the previous one was a postwoman. But yeah, they're local, so they know. And if it's in a rural area, they will know everybody, and they can go back generations. And it's lovely to have that. Yeah, it's a great story.
Did we go through? Yeah, I don't know if you really have anything to say about the ovate and druid grades.
Well, I will. I'd say that the ovate grade is about connecting with it's kind of, it's like the shaman, so it's connecting with herb lore, deepening your connection to nature, deepening your connection with trees, also your relationship with time, the past, the present, and the future, the ancestors. And divination, that kind of thing. Now, it doesn't train you to be a diviner, but it creates a space for you to explore this. And then the druid grade is the philosophical grade. So if you were looking at the three, so you've got like your singer, shaman, sage, the bard, ovate, druid. The bardic grade is about the pursuit of creativity. The other one is about love, and the other one is about wisdom. So the druid grade is the philosophical one. It's around looking at the principles of Druidry, being of service. That notion of responsibility. Ethics is very, very important. You view your actions through an ethical lens. We don't say you should be vegan, you should be vegetarian, you shouldn't be driving a car. There's none of that. That you make your own decisions, and obviously, as you so you should reap, which is which is universal. That notion,
yeah.
But that being of service, questioning, like I say, we've no dogma. We don't have a big book, so we don't have a list of sins. We don't have a list of commandments. What we have is that you live your life tapping into your own moral compass, and that you are responsible for your actions. You can't say, "Oh, my guides made me do it, the devil made me do it, God made me do it, my mother made me do it," whatever it is. It's you are accountable for your actions. So yes, you make choices, but you evaluate them through using an ethical lens, and you take responsibility for the consequences. And service, so that service can be as teacher, ritual holder, celebrant, being a good neighbor, whatever it is that service means to you. And you can be a bard and decide never to proceed to the other two grades, and that is as valid a choice as any other. Or so, for example, when I was doing the bardic grade, I struggled with it because, in my notion, I'm not a bard. Okay, my husband Howard, he would spit out poetry while he's sitting down making bread. It would just flow from him, and I'm going, I can't. It took me 7 years to do the bardic grade, and when I handed in my review, I was at an interview. So during that, I'm an ovate. I did Reiki training, shamanic training, my herb lore, and I'm a psychologist, and I was a nurse. So I had all of that healing stuff, and that's where I wanted to be. And I remember I was at an international gathering of shamans, and I started telling stories. He says, "Oh, you can tell stories." And I thought, that's it. 7 years on the bardic grade, never told a story, struggled with the notion of being a bard. And then I took up the harp during my ovate grade. So yes, I am a bard. I'm also an ovate. And that was a much quicker process doing the ovate grade. And then I entered the druid grade. I was already holding ceremonies before that. I was a celebrant. So everything was all mixed up. But certainly if you go to a gathering, no one's going to ask you, what grade are you on? If they're chatting to you, having a cup of tea, or if you're in a restaurant, nobody's interested in that. That's not important. Hierarchy isn't important. It's like, can we talk? What have we got in common? It's really, really important.
Am I correct that I don't want to say real druids, but like the ancient druids, these are just different classes of the druid grade. They were pretty much equal. These are different things. It wasn't like a
I think they're
hierarchical
different
thing.
purposes. No,
Yeah,
different purposes.
yeah,
And all of them important and seen as important. Absolutely. So, and certainly in this side of the world, that there is no hierarchy, and you take your time. I know there are some people who want to rush and say, okay, each course lasts 3 years, or each course lasts a year. I'm going to get it all done in 3 years. Don't rush. You take your time. Some people have done the Bardic grade 3 times.
yeah.
Before they really got it. There's no rush because it's not a qualification. It's about your own personal. You can't hurry love. That's the song, isn't it? There's lots of things you can't hurry.
Right.
And I think a spiritual practice you can't hurry. It's about slowly engaging in your own time, whatever that is. And people have work at different paces.
Yeah.
So, like I say, it took me 7 years to do the Bardic grade, and then 2 to do the OBOD, and then I got into the Druid grade, and that was a much easier process for me than the first one. I really struggled with the first one.
Right. Yeah, I'm okay with the Bardic grade. So I kind of identify it with a little bit. My whole family is musicians, and my great grandmother's family were of the Bardic tradition. The Dailies or O'Dailies. I have a whole book of poetry written by them, so kind of like it. I guess a familial connection to them. So I've been okay with the Bardic, but I'm really interested in the Elevate when I get to it, hopefully. But like you said, you have as much time as you need. Not by design, but this has worked out really well. I'll do like 3 or 4 lessons, and then life would interrupt, and I'd put it down, and then I would go back a few months later, and then I would go through those 3 or 4 lessons again, and just find different things that I missed the first time, and then add on 5 and 6, and then something would happen, and I go back to the beginning again.
It's like the journey through the grades it's labyrinthine. It's not linear.
Yeah,
you're in and around, all around, and the interesting thing is that when you revisit something you've looked at some time back, and you discover some new nugget that you may have seen but didn't register or didn't notice. And that's the magic of it. There's lots of magic in Druidry. The Irish word for magic and Druidry is the same. It's Druid.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you can't plan that. That comes when you open your mind and open your heart and open your soul, and you open your gorse. You find something there.
Yeah. I mean, just because the lessons can't be totally linear, just say, I get to the 5th lesson, and learning what I learned in the 5th lesson, when I go back to the second one, it's like, okay, now I see that this is more important. You kind of have to like snake around a little bit.
That's right. Yeah.
But it's a fun time.
And it can be really challenging. And that's really good, because if you're not challenged, and if you don't reach an edge in any pursuit in life, like you say you're a bard, if it's a musician, if you don't reach an edge, where does the creativity come? Yeah. So, and some of the notions can be challenging, but I think that's a real opportunity to engage with the challenge and then make what of it. One of the things is, if this I think this is right through the lessons. If it feels right for you at this moment, you might like to do this exercise. If it doesn't feel right, you can leave it and come back to it another time. It's never that you have to say your prayers every day, or you have to do this, right. Otherwise the sky will fall in, or you're whatever. And if there's an idea that you don't like or that jars with you, it's like stew in it, engage with it, and make some sense. Or you decide, actually, this idea or this notion is not for me, and you can leave it aside, and then you go on to something else.
Yeah.
It's not about making you feel good. It's about, getting you to grow and challenge yourself and discover your own druid path. What the teachings are for me are like a scaffolding, like a framework on which to build your own druid practice.
Definitely. What concerns me, not as much within, like, say, the OBOD community, but just the world in general, is everybody wants instant gratification. Nobody wants that challenge or to work hard. If they don't get the answer right then and there and for gratification, then they're not going to do it. And people are going to miss out on so much. Our brains are amazing tools, and they just want everything fed to them and be robots. And the younger generations, and it's really concerning to me.
Yeah, and that leads, lends to a very dull life. And it's like, it's not the destination. I mean, sorry, that's a bit of a cliche, but it's the
Yeah,
journey.
absolutely.
And we talk about the journey through the grades, the journey through the forest, the journey through the elements. All of that, it's you're off on an adventure, and to be able to discover the magic that's there for you. And what you notice is not what I notice, and vice versa.
Right. Yeah,
And that's what's so
absolutely.
unique and magical.
So sometimes it's the things that aren't like the big things that everybody notices that are the ones that are actually important.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to educate myself and reading books, I find things in there that resonate with me, which was not the author's intent, but you have to kind of be engaged with the book, with the text, to actually find those nuggets.
That's right. And there's also something that I learned is that often people will talk about these magical experiences they've had. They went on a journey and they were on the pyramids and they met 3 unicorns who took them to the moon and all sorts of wonderful stuff. And you kind of go, and they saw it in Technicolor, and I'm kind of thinking, oh my God, mine is so plain. I see so much in sepia. And I learned that you can find the most extraordinary and most profound messages or insights from the ordinary, from the mundane.
I definitely hope that's the case, because I'm more along the lines of you with these types of experiences. What is it? I was taking an OM Journeys course right now, and people are saying, "Oh, I saw this and that and the other thing." I'm like, okay, like, what am I doing wrong here?
No, vanilla is good, by the way.
And with it, I also too find it hard to separate what's imagination from what's real when doing it.
And I can't answer that question.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can. Yeah, I mean, what do they call it in all the online groups? Unverified personal gnosis, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I want to get that intense with it. I guess we can move on to mental health, because we only have about 15, 17 minutes left, something like that, 20 minutes. All my clocks have a different time, so I don't know which one's right.
I'm 20 to 4, my time.
Yeah, okay. I have 17 on my computer thing, which I know is off.
Okay.
So as you know, I've been researching how Druidry, a Celtic spirituality lifestyle, and paganism might possibly provide some positive mental health benefits, people suffering from anxiety and depression. Another tool to combat it, in addition to the regular therapies and medications. What benefits do you possibly see Druidry having on anxiety and depression?
I think a huge amount. So it's a spiritual development path, but it's also a personal development path. It's very therapeutic, but it's not therapy. Get
Right.
the difference?
Yep, of course.
Yeah. So the meditative techniques that you're encouraged to explore, particularly the light body one and your sacred grove one, these are really, really important grounding techniques. It's like where I am right now in the moment. So if I can sit in my inner grove, I'm sitting here looking at you, but Philip does this on his teas on a Monday. You're sitting in front of your screen. Now close your eyes and you're in the grove and you're in the clearing in the forest. Those kind of things are really, really important, simple grounding techniques. So what's wonderful about Druidry, it's an earth-based, grounded spiritual path. Other spiritual paths can be transcendent and thinking on focusing on the afterlife. Here we focus on the here and now. And I think if you can be grounded, that's a place where you can allow your soul to dwell. Finding your place in the world, wherever that is. If it's in your apartment in Long Island, away from the pollen, or if it's here in Kilkenny, or wherever it is. If I can find my space here and now, I am grounded. That provides me with a really, really strong anchor from which to navigate. And when I focus on the here and now, focusing on my breath, breathing in and breathing out, focusing on becoming aware of my light body, that's what's important at that moment. So taking care of the present. Anxiety is all about, mulling and pondering and about the future and what might or might not happen.
Even the
And then
past is
something
for me
trips.
sometimes. Oh, I
Yeah,
should
and
have
then
done this, that, the other thing.
exactly. And then, or the past is, I should, yes, exactly that. Or this happened to me and it shouldn't have happened, etc. But that this, let's start with now, because that's the one thing you can control. And I remember talking about this, in the early days of the pandemic, about, it was such a time of incredible uncertainty. Nobody knew what was going to happen, or even what they were dealing with. And I remember saying, this is what I have as that anchor to go into my own grove, anchor myself. I can focus on now. This is the one thing I can do. And that, to me, really, really important in terms of managing mental health. There's all the other stuff about diet and exercise and doing things you enjoy. Really, really important. And also this is these meditative practices. And of course, having that connection with nature and the seasons, because you can see it, you can observe it. I know if you, I think you can look out your window. Maybe I don't. Are there
Oh yeah,
any
yeah.
flowers, trees? Okay.
Yeah, I have a house
Okay.
with a small plot of land, but I could see all the houses around me, I could hear the highway in the distance and the commotion. It's suburbs.
Okay. Well, I was in the garden this morning and walking around and noticing, because I went to see how my bees are, and they're doing really well, thank you. And the birds were just singing so loudly, and yet I have trucks going by I live in a rural area, but it's quite noisy traffic wise because it's a small road, but the trucks like to go by. And I was conscious of the noise, and yet I could hear this incredible, magical, beautiful bird song that just gave me a lift. And then when
Right.
I'm looking out now, I see the blue sky. I'm facing the north, but I know the sun is the other side of the house, shining over my house onto the garden. And that gives me a lift. So it's about looking to nature, to the things that support you. I remember reading about a prisoner who was in solitary confinement. I don't know how long he was there for. And he said the one thing that sustained him was he had a tiny window up high up on the wall, but he was able to look out. And it was like buildings, 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 but there was one tree that he could see. And he developed a relationship with that tree and was able to follow it, in the seasons.
Right.
And that was something that sustained him. And it's about finding, so you've got your grove, you've got your light body exercise anchoring you, and then you look out and find something in nature that you can observe and have a connection with and speak to and sing to. And I think that's really, really important in terms of managing mental health, particularly when, this, all hell is breaking loose all around you. It's fine if everything's fine, dandy, but it isn't. And we have no guarantees that our life stays stable or that we never have any adverse life events. But it's to be able to do that in the midst of all that stuff. What are my go-to things? And
Yeah.
Druidry certainly offers that. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, going back a little bit to something you said early on, I've been a huge proponent of having a good base, a good foundation to build everything on. You could do all these things for mental health, but if it's on a shaky ground, it could topple over. And there's a lot of ways to get that foundation. And one of the things I'm a proponent of is having an altar, whether you're actually religious and you want to worship deities or whatever or not. Just that having that altar, putting things on it that are important to you and give you a second to pause. I find that extremely grounding. Mine that have ancestors and things that were important to them and things that are important to me and a few other things. And if I sit at it, to me, it's very grounding. I know who I am. I know what my foundation is. So anything I do after that it's just building on it and making it stronger.
That's right. So, I mean, my altar is a seasonal one. So, it's still equinoxy. So as I'm coming up to Bealtaine,
Yeah.
I will change that. So again, even choosing what to put on the altar for that particular point in the year, I'm thinking, and that's my altar is inside. And then I have, this massive altar outside, which takes care of itself, looking at the landscape. It's just these wonderful windows that I can look out onto, and
Yeah, I
then
mean,
that allow to connect with my inner world and
just the
and that sense
process.
of inner well-being. Yeah,
Yeah, just that process, like you said, of deciding what you want to put in that altar. You learn so much about yourself if you
that's right.
actually really do it in earnest, as opposed to, ooh, that's pretty or that looks cool, but actually really do it and think about what is important to you, what needs to be on that altar.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's an altar that's personal to you. And
Right.
there's no dogma with that either. So that's what's really beautiful, is that special thing that you can modify whenever you wish.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think working with the elements, the healing properties of the elements, and I'm talking about metaphysical healing,
Mhm.
um, drinking clean water if you can get it, lighting candles, working with the healing property of fire, breathe your breath, really, really, really important. And even getting your hands into the earth, even in your little plot, if it doesn't cause you too much trouble, you know, just to be able to feel that. And I know actually they've found in recent years that there's some, I don't, the word enzyme may be the wrong word, but some property in soil that they found is actually really good that you absorb through your skin to help you manage anxiety.
Interesting. Yeah, when I was a kid, I was outside all the time. In the summers, my mom would open up the door and say, "Get out, go play. Don't come back
Yeah,
till lunch. After lunch, get out, go play. Don't come back to dinner."
yeah,
And
yeah.
and even on school days, as soon as I got home and finished my homework, out the door until it was dark. And I love the outside. I would literally sit and play in the dirt when I was very little. Maybe all the exposure to outside gave me my allergies that I have now.
I don't know. It's sometimes it's the modern world that gives you the allergies. Because I mean, I was the same, off for hours in rural Ireland, unsupervised. Um, Told never to go near the river. Of course, we went to the river. Uh, but out playing, getting dirty, just hands in the earth, catching little. We used to call them pinkings. These little. They're smaller than minnows, tiny little fish. With a jam jar and a piece of string. Walking in streams, getting water into our Wellingtons, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Picking nuts, knowing that yes, every September we go to this woods beside the river, beside the railway, a disused railway to get the nuts. Knowing where to go for the gooseberries, know where to go for the wild strawberries. All of that stuff. Just walking the roads,
Yeah. It's
and
exploring.
not available to many people nowadays because of so-called progress. But anyway, and then fast cars and busy roads and all of that we could do this without worry. The good old days, when everything was perfect.
I still think it's more perfect than not in Ireland, if you ask me. But
Yeah, actually, I'm glad I live in this time in many many ways. Certainly, as a woman, uh, there's far more freedom of difference, or there's far more respect and acceptance for people of difference now.
right.
Um, and to be I mean, I'm living in a rural area, but not where I'm from. So I do have a lot of freedom to be the quirky, eccentric that I am, um, where that wouldn't have been possible as when I was growing up, a bit more conservative, a bit more narrow-minded. So there's always an advantage to opening yourself up to the world, but not so much that you become assimilated with the whole world and everything becomes diluted and superficial, to be able to hold the richness of your own heritage and your own landscape, and at the same time opening yourself up to other worldviews and see where they meet that point of
Yeah,
connection. So
absolutely. I mean,
my
now
experience of
go ahead.
my experience of working in Africa with healers there is you're talking about completely different colors and textures, completely different landscape, and yet there's a meeting point. Yes, we understand about the elements. Yes, we understand about the four directions. Yes, we understand about following the sun, the healing aspects of nature, ancestral connection. And that it's like, yes, we get this. You do your ritual your way, I'll do mine my way, but we understand we're saying the same thing, just using a different language. And that the modern world has opened up that. And even now that we're having this conversation, one thing you asked me, there's a little bit off pieced here, well, not quite, but you asked me about the membership in
Right.
the order. One thing that has happened as a result of the pandemic, we had to go online. I would never have thought that either I would be having therapy sessions online, that I'd be telling stories online, I'd be having ritual online, or even that we would be having um, uh, content like this. I mean, a live stream every Thursday, a fireside chat. I never thought that was possible. And I would have thought it won't work. But one thing I learned from the pandemic is that, yes, you can have a very profound ritual online. And that has opened up the members who are solitary practitioners. Like I've always been, initially I was a bit on my own. Well, I had my husband with me and
Right.
one other person. And then I started eventually going to the gatherings. So I have a community here, a Druidic, well, it's a general community who come to the ceremonies. So I'm not alone. And that has always been my experience of Druidry. So many of our members, particularly in the US, who live and they don't know one other Druid, they might be 5 hours away from the nearest Druid if they know them. They can't maybe come out to their family, or they can't say it at work for various reasons. That our online presence has opened out to our community and then brought people in. So now they recognize, okay, we have maybe close to 30,000, between 25 and 30,000 members worldwide, that actually our community has gone smaller again. We have these online meetups. So people then form groves, virtual groves, as a result of having met somebody for a little chit chat. And the fact that people say, I'm at a Druid ceremony for the first time in my life, and I've seen it online, and I feel so happy to be part of this community. And then somebody in the comments will answer to them, will respond to them. That's been magical. So around the uses of technology have been a wonderful tool that we have been able to use. Now, there's no substitute for being out in a grove and out in a forest.
Right.
But when you haven't got that people from all over the world can join us. And we have members from all over the world, all on all continents, that people can come tune in and take part in a ceremony that's meaningful to them. And that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to, I think, at least experience things live at least one time, because you get a different feeling. But yeah,
yes.
Everything online it just made things so much easier.
It has, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
My son and I both take guitar lessons, and it was always a hassle to get to the guitar teacher, and then I have to wait for him, and then get home, then I have to go back for myself. Now we just do it all online on Zoom, and it works
Same
great
here.
for everybody.
I do my harp lesson online. Who'd have thunk it?
Some progress is good, some not so much.
Absolutely. It's about using these platforms rather than being used by them. And that's the thing. It's about not being controlled by them, you know.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so is there anything that you want to say in particular, or promote, or talk about?
Just that our community, as is open. I do a fireside chat every live stream every Thursday, not this Thursday because my computer isn't working, but where I talk to an ordinary member of an ordinary member of OBOD, not a big name. So maybe you'll be a guest sometime.
Yeah, happy to.
And we have viewers and members and non-members viewing, and they feed in questions as well. So they're actually really nice chats. And then Philip does his teas, and then we have a building resilience for hard times. It's once the first Wednesday of the month. It was a brainchild of Harriet Sams, a listening circle for people where we gather on Zoom just to talk about how we feel about various issues. Really, really important. And very, very interesting. So the order has a lot. We have a celebrancy course. There's tarot. Philip has his other courses. There's the Magicians Club.
Oh, wow. That I didn't know.
Yeah. What's it called? The Magician Club. So that started off with Philip doing that. You'll find it on Facebook. And I'm not a Facebooky person, so it's all there. Or if not, it's on the website. Right. So, we're expanding everything within the order from what was, starting in using ads in magazines. Do you want to become a Druid? To everything's paper and pencil, to now having all this capability, and then a bigger reach for our members, which right. is lovely. And then we have gatherings as well, and people can have their own gatherings wherever they are, and you can have a seed group. Are you a member of a seed group?
No, the closest one is New York City, which might as well be on the moon because it takes so long to get there and back.
Traffic. Okay. So, so you can have, you just need 2 people to have a seed group and have your ceremonies, or you can do it virtually. So many people. So when I ask people, groves or seed groups to do the online, so every 6 weeks we have an online ceremony for everybody. Some it's like, well, the hosts, the first 2 people there in Clare in Ireland, and then somebody else is in Guatemala, and somebody else is in Australia, whatever they are, they have now met, and that has great capacity. So it's about reaching out. We're not into conversion. We're not
Right.
looking for members. We're not selling it in any sense. But it's there for people of any persuasion. So
Right.
we welcome diversity. We have an expression in Irish, Éintach den Iliacht, unity and diversity, and it's a wonderful organization. So many people, I have found a home, and so many others have found a home.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And just to be clear, when I said promote things, I meant just to make people aware of the existence, not trying to sell it to them. Because if they don't know about it, they're not going to come. I mean, in all honesty, when I first went down this road and I Googled Druidry, the top hits that came up were the Druid class in Dungeons and Dragons and some video game that has Druids in it. So,
Okay.
It's just a matter of getting out there that you exist and people can take a look and see for themselves.
And our website is www.druidry.org. And like you say, there's a lot of information there. We have a library there. There's the Mount Hemus papers that you can read. That's the academic wing,
right?
So that's produced every Bealtaine. And there's a new paper where somebody has written a paper on some scholarship around Druidry. And there's some really, really, really interesting papers there. There's that piece. And then I think we've recordings of. There's so much.
Yeah.
There's little film clips, all sorts of information.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Lovely. Enjoyed to talk to you too, Michael. I have a question for you. Guarnieri?
Yeah. Yep.
That's from where?
Italy.
Oh, okay. So do you speak parli Italiano?
Yep. My father is part Italian and part Irish, and my mom's family is Jewish. So it's a nice little mix there.
Okay, so your father is Daly and Guarnieri.
Yeah, and Fox and whatever Irish ancestors he has there.
Okay.
And to make it more interesting, my wife's from Taiwan, so her family's Buddhist.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, absolutely. That's
so I would say, we had to have a non-denominational ecumenical minister marry us. Otherwise, it'd be like the beginning of a joke. A priest, a rabbi, and a Buddhist monk walk into a bar.
That's and you can add a fourth one now. A druid walked into a bar. So
Yeah,
there
right?
You are.
Well, thank you so much again. Take care. Bye. If you enjoyed this interview, then I suggest you check out my interview with Ben Stimson. You can find it here.